1, 2, 3, 4. When a chipmunk zeros for. Sound up. Sound up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Look at the top 10. You'll have the Specials, you'll have Elvis Costello, you'll have the Bee Gees, Pink Floyd, the Rats, ABBA, Paul McCartney. It's a very healthy mixture. People are listening to all sorts of music, and that's precisely the way it should be. I couldn't care less if somebody hates the Rats and likes ABBA. I don't care. I think they're idiots, but it doesn't bother me very much, you know.
But what happened to the bands who started the whole thing in '77? The Sex Pistols disbanded in '78, and their bass player, Sid Vicious, dead from an overdose of heroin, became a cult figure. The Damned now play a mixture of original punk and heavy metal. They have to strip to shock people nowadays.
At the very beginning of all this, 1976, when all the new bands started coming out, was the fact that they were criticising this idea of an establishment, and in doing so they were forming an establishment themselves. They were becoming a clique unto themselves, which was as boring to my mind as the one that they were criticising, and which needed to be destroyed as much as the one that they were trying to destroy. They put themselves in an artistic corner, and they were talking about a certain type of politics and this, that and the other, and we will never do this and we will never do that. Of course, ultimately they had to compromise, and they looked like idiots because they've been shouting so long about they would never do this that they eventually had to. And I think some of them worked themselves into a corner where they couldn't break out of. Sham 69 is an example. I think the Clash almost did that, but they were clever and good enough to break out of it.
The Clash started at the same time as the Sex Pistols, but they've survived, making new music, but exploring and incorporating other types of music, like reggae.
I have no fear. I live by the river. Oh, oh, oh. I have no fear when the is drowning. I live by the river. Oh, 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 oh. Calling, they're true. Know what they said. Some of it was true. But I die surrounded in my so much alike.
Instead of using a hammer, you know, we're trying to be a bit more subtle with it. You know, first we'd go to hit you right on the middle of the head with it.
Yeah,
100 times, right? But now we like to just a few strokes of the hammer here and there, you know? It's more powerful than...
ammunition. Police and thieves in the street. Oh yeah, give ammunition with guns and ammunition. From Genesis to Revelation, the next generation will be me. From Genesis to Revelation, next generation. Now looking in, day by day, no one does stop it. All the peacemakers turn one off the side. But I no one tries to stop it. Oh, please be God. Turn one on the side. You read in the Bible, page number 1, that's Genesis to Revelation. Now what generation? Can you tell me? I did not know. I wasn't afraid. That's outside. Goes on and on. Here goes, here goes. Here goes, here goes.
And we do the same thing all the time. This is the question. No. No. Because then you're just dead. You know, you do the same thing, and who wants to know? After a while, you know, it makes people sick in the head to do that. So we have to always try new things, you know. And like everyone's a load of sort of like sheep, you know, going, "Nee, it's horrible. Nee, it's nice," you know. But they don't fucking know. You know, only we know what we're doing, and like, obviously we think it's for the best. Anyway, we can play, we can handle it better now. So we don't disguise that, we try and play as good as we can, you know. Obviously we spent 4 years playing now, non-stop. Obviously, we must be 4 times better than them. Otherwise, we'd be pretty much like idiots, huh?
no matter what other musical fashions there are, there's always a place for rock and roll. And we're an Irish band, which means that we are kind of immune to a lot of the English influences. The one thing about the Rats is that we don't have a style. I think styles are fairly boring. You're limited by style as well. We have a sound, a certain sound, but that's because the way I talk and sing, you know, and the band play a certain way. So there's a certain sound, but there's no style, and that irritates a lot of people. It irritates the press a lot. For the teen magazines like Jackie, I'm supposed to be a pin-up star who has a pretty girlfriend. For the daily pop papers, I'm supposed to be Bob Geldof, rock star, who goes to premieres with his famous girlfriend. It's supposed to be like Rod and Britt or Mick and Bianca, and it's not even Mick and Marianne, you know. And for the so-called intelligent papers, the upmarket papers, the Guardian and the Times, the Telegraph, I'm supposed to be Bob Geldof, articulate young man of the new wave. And for the music press, I'm either supposed to be, he's clever, but he's a bastard, Bob Geldof, or else he's a talentless idiot, Bob Geldof, or else I can't stand him, Bob Geldof.
One of the most important things to the British music scene is the existence of small clubs. In London, on almost every night, there will be over 50 bands playing. In the north of London, in the Moonlight Club, Spizzenergi are playing. Spizz started to sing in '77, singing old Bowie songs. Now he has a band of his own and a successful single on the Rough Trade label. Just after this was filmed, he changed the name of the band to Atletico Spitz 80.
Well, we made a beautiful mess of that. Okay, here's my way.
The Jam used to play small clubs too, like here at the 100 Club in London's Oxford Street back in '77. And since then, they've become very successful, one of the most successful survivors of punk.
What do you think happened to punk rock?
Changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's progressed, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if it stayed the same all the time, if those sort of movements stayed the same, we'd still be producing Rolling Stone bands, you know? Or skiffle or whatever. Things have got to change, and they have done.
Why do you think, are you one of the survivors?
I think we've sustained some of the ideals.
What are these ideas?
Well, I mean, it's just like, I mean, the main thing was like honesty, you know, and honesty with, like, you know, your fans or whatever.
whether they like it or not, have been the inspiration and the heroes of the new mod movement. In 1979, The Who produced the film Quadrophenia about the mods in the 60s, and it started a revival of mod culture. The 60s mods were smart, clean-cut. They drove scooters, chewed gum, ate tons of speed, and listened mainly to American soul music. Their own bands were The Who and the Small Faces. The mods were crazy about fashion and spent most of their money on clothes, making the name of Carnaby Street famous. Their enemies were the rockers, people with greasy hair, leather jackets and heavy motorbikes. With them they had fights every weekend at seaside resorts in the south of England. Nick Cohen writes in his History of Rock, "Ecstatical weekend, 72 hours without sleep, and all you did was running around, making trouble, taking pills and kicking with your boots." The new mods tried to copy the clothes of the old ones complete. There are no rockers here in Brighton anymore, but it's still one of their favourite places. They don't listen only to old records, but form lots of new bands too. The best known is Secret Affair. They formed their own label, I Spy, and want to change the word mod for Glory Boy.
The word mod is a label, and Glory Boys is a title, which is a lot more flattering, and it's also a lot more contemporary. That the movement is akin to the old mods. Only means it's part of the heritage. Doesn't mean that it's any more than that. It's people actually searching for glory, the idea of wearing a suit and wanting to look good, dignity.
Well, they can laugh in our face, because they know we're right. Looking good is the answer. I'm living my life. So take it to your leader, because this time you realize that this is the time for action. Time to say, look at see Julia sitting on the late night train. They're laughing at the way she dresses. She's too smart to clean, but she don't care, because she knows she's right. And you know we're on there, 2 steps away. This is the time for action. Time to see. Hey, hey, hey! This is the time for action. Time to be seen. This is the time for action. Time to be seen. I said this is the time. This is the time for action. Time to be seen. This is the time for action. Time to be seen. I said this is the time. Time for action. Time to be seen.
Successful newcomers of '79 came from a musical desert of Britain, Coventry. Coventry is a boring industrial town in the middle of the United Kingdom. From here emerged the new ska sound. Ska is Jamaican dance music from the 60s, a forerunner of reggae, and this is combined with white rock music to create the new ska sound. Right from the beginning, Jerry Dammers of the Specials formed his own record company, Two Tone. This is a name taken from a fashion popular in the 60s. And there's nothing to do with there usually being both black and white musicians in the bands. Two Tone has been very successful. All of the signings have reached the top 10 in the English charts.
Children of Coventry, take heed. You could enjoy yourself when you grow up, or there again you could have done too much too young. You done too much too young. You're married with a kid when you could be having fun with more. Oh, no, you ain't a more business. You done too much too young. And now you're married with a son when you should be having fun. We know how, no more business.
ska sound. We take from the basic R&B, you know, rhythm and blues lines, and add the rhythm, like, cha, 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 cha. And then you have the element of rock music that is sort of British rock music. I don't think there ever been a company seriously sort of come to Coventry and look to see what is happening in Coventry, you know, to say actually sign a band from Coventry. It was because it was always thought of as such a place where nothing ever happened exciting, you know, which maybe it is, you know, which give us that that fighting spirit to keep on and on and on, because we've been here a long time sort of striving to get some sort of music together, and for the companies to come down and say, you know, even give us a one-off record deal, you know, but it never happened. And the special, the companies that turn down the specials, you know, now they're kicking themselves up the arse because they couldn't see what was going to happen or what was happening.
I've never run.
Go to school to learn the musical rule. You come to the dance, you got one turn. So right now, rock it to the rhythm called Guns Up Never Run. Let me hear you say, jig it up, jig it up. Guns Up Never Run, baby, gotta jig it up, so make it don't look bad. Cause rhythm gotta hide. Guns Up Never Run, just stop dropping from the sky. Really, really cool sounds around town. Guns Up Never Run. Work is show, baby, work is show. Brother Rico's gonna blow your mind. Blow, baby, Rico, blow.
But when I say it says something, I mean, all I'm saying really is that, I mean, the people who come to see us are not so far removed from what our beginnings were sort of, you know, 6 months ago, right? And therefore, all we're doing is just sort of placing their life in some kind of perspective, you know, just sort of setting it to music, if you like, in sort of the songs we have, like Street Feeling or Danger and things like that, you know? And so they can directly relate to the music that you're playing. And yeah, you can dance to it.
to do something about it. It's no use sort of sitting down and saying, you know, oh, things are hard and, you know, what can I do? If you don't get up off your ass and do something about it, you're always going to be in that situation, you know. And that's the message to you and you and you and you and you.
Don't argue!
You had another band called Madness in London, which were sort of creating the same thing.
Hey, you! Don't watch that, watch this! This is the heavy, heavy monster sound! The nuttiest sound around! So if you coming off the street and you're beginning to feel the heat, well listen, Buster, you better start to move your feet to the rockinest, rock steady beat of madness. One step beyond.
I just think, I think in the last couple of years, in England anyway, I don't know about Germany, but there's definite sort of style of 70s discos of like just sort of like computer records, computer disco.
Yeah, long
and I think it'll return to like, in the 80s, it'll return to sort of like the 60s of having live bands for people to dance to instead of just sort of tapes and computer records. And I think that's for the 80s. Live bands!
An earthquake is erupting about North and Orange Street. Our ghost dance is preparing. You got to help us with your feet. If you're not in the mood to dance, step back, grab yourself a seat. These men of uptown Jamaica, I can promise you a treat. I bust the bomb me over with your bogus dance, shuffle me up my feet. Even if I kept on running, I'd never get to Orange Street. So I put nothing left to say for the man who set the beat. So I'll leave it up to you and there to get him back on his feet. I bust the bomb me over with your bogus dance, shuffle me off my feet. Even if I kept on running, I'd never get to Orange Street. Bring back that. Who is that? Who is that?
We just used to listen to lots of old records. We never really got into the punk thing too much.
I did. What do you
How would you describe it? What sounds?
Well, it's just a sort of community...
Sophisticated, smooth.
Amalgam...
Sort of rough, smooth sound, you know, it's...
It's a little amalgamation of lots of sort of old sounds. Of lots of old records we used to listen to, like sort of R&B and reggae and what have you. We're a rip-off. It's sort of like white, it's like white reggae, but like a bit faster. I'm a moody pop star. No, I love it. I love it. I mean, the thing is, but I just do what I feel like. You know what I mean? And we all love it, really. But I mean, we pretend not to. The same as like. But I mean, we don't overdo it. We do it as it comes. You know what I mean? I don't go out my way to not be a pop star. I love the old. I'm sick of light and bitters.
I've still got a light out. Look.
No, yeah.
Leaves them all right.
One must change with the times.
My girl's mad at me. I didn't want to see the film tonight. I thought we got it straight. We talked and till it was like, why can't I explain? Why do I feel this pain? 'Cause everything I say she doesn't understand. She doesn't realise she takes it all the wrong way.
we knew what was happening tomorrow, we'd give up today. Spontaneous music!
A great influence for Madness is Ian Dury. We met him by chance in Aylesbury, where he played unannounced with The Clash.
White face, black shirt, white socks, black shoes, black hair, white strap, black white nine, black swing, G Vixen. Let the blue caps roll tonight, and the sun got born in the Union Hall. The pop is there delight. Well, it got duck-tailed Danny, dreaded uncanny Annie, the one with the flying feet. You can break the beat, Danny single grease. The beat is recomplete, and the jump back honey in the dungarees, the sweater and a ponytail. When it gets her age, when she come backstage, the hula by their name, Nicky. Black gloves, white frost, black crate, white lead, white sheet, black knife, jet black name, white sweat, Jim Vincent is one in every town, and the devil drives to the hearse arrive to lay that pistol down. Sweet Jim Vincent with nowhere left to hide, with lazy skin and a straight eyes, evaporated bright. So the real man town in the Bugger Hotel, goodbye to money home. When your leg still hurts and you need more shirts, gotta get back on the road. Sweet Jim Vincent, sweet Jim Vincent, sweet Jim Vincent, sweet Jim Vincent. When your leg still hurts and you need more shirts. The peasants of Sudan and the gardens of Japan, from the land to Yucatan, every woman, every man. Hit me with your rhythm stick, hit me, should I not include it? Hit me, hit me with your rhythm stick, hit me slowly, hit me quick, hit me, hit me. In the wilds of Borneo and the vineyards of Bordeaux, Eskimo, Arapaho, move their body to and fro. Hit me with your rhythm stick, hit me, das ist gut, say fantastic. Hit me with your rhythm stick. It's nice to be a lunatic. Hit me, hit me. rhythm stick. Hit me, c'est si bon, c'est stick. Hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me with your rhythm stick. Bollocks and fuck, shit and kick. Hit me, 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 hit me.
The Pretenders had their first #1 hit in the UK with Brass in Pockets. We filmed them a few weeks before their breakthrough in their rehearsal rooms.
Yes, it's time you to laugh. Keep on now.